Never a nice thing, because, you know, asking someone to leave a band, it's like, it's a slight on what they themselves hold dearest, which is their belief in their ability.
John Lord, I'd considered my closest friend. I mean, I'd consider that guy like the brother I never had, you know. And it hurt, yeah, it did hurt. I mean, I never really saw him again.
We could have been a lot braver and nicer about the Nicky and Rod thing, you know. They still would have hated us, you know, for chucking them out the band.
Rod and Nick were replaced by Ian Gillan and Roger Glover. Ian and Roger felt they'd moved up in the world and wanted to kit themselves out in new clothes. They asked to see the Purple management team, Tony Edwards and John Coletta, to get an advance on future earnings.
I got the money, he said, and his words were, "I knew you were trouble. The moment I set eyes on you, Gillan, if you ever come to me with any problems about money ever again, I'm going to throw you back in the gutter where I found you." Verbatim. That's exactly what he said to me.
They definitely looked down on us as being the two new boys who were being given this opportunity. This opportunity that if we didn't behave ourselves, they would take away.
The Purple management had a novel suggestion for exploiting the current popularity of the band.
Because he used to go to dinner with the bloke who owned Sanderson's wallpaper, he wanted us to do Deep Purple wallpaper that was going to be on people's... Of course, he didn't realise. I mean, we'll go, "Oh, brilliant idea, Tony, yeah. Deep Purple bog paper as well, we should do some of that." "I want my picture on that." And various other, you know, and they didn't understand at all.
The first recording project the new lineup was involved in was John Lord's fusion of rock and classical music, the Concerto for Group and Orchestra.
We suddenly had the Royal Philharmonic, the Albert Hall, and Malcolm Arnold, you know, one of England's greatest living composers, involved. And it was about, I don't know, 12 weeks to go. I used to come back from a gig to my flat in Fulham and start work. I used to work through till 8, 9 in the morning, then sleep during the day, and then off to the gig. Now, the rest of the band were not amused.
First of all, there was a wave of anti-concerto feeling, started by Richie, and I went along with it. It was very early days in the band, and I saw some sense in what Richie was saying. He said, "This is going to detract from what we're doing on our album. This is going to detract from the rock stuff. This is going to make people confused."
Ian Gillan, too, he sang beautifully, but he only wrote the words, like, I think, the day before the concert. You know, I've been asking him for weeks to write the words for the middle movement. I'll get to it. And he wrote them the day before. If you listen to the words, they are about him standing there in front of an orchestra when he wants really to be in a rock band. And how can I do this? You know, I don't know what I'm doing here. Get me out of this. Help.
What shall I do with the all go wrong?
So the rest of the band were not helping. But at the end of that night, you could have put their 5 smiles together and spanned the River Thames.
The next day, the papers were full of us, and it was really a press explosion. And John Lord suddenly became the main writer and main composer of the band, which really got up the noses of everyone else in the band, because he wasn't the main writer, the main composer, or even the leader, all of which he was touted as. And Richie in particular got very bitter about that.
It happened in London. It happened in the Royal Albert Hall. The world premiere of the Concerto for Group and Orchestra by John Lord.
If there was any jealousy as such, I believe the jealousy stemmed mostly from Richie. There's this kind of eminence grise in the corner, you know. I always imagine him on a perch, you know, like sort of peering. I mean, this guy's been part of my life for a quarter of a century, damn it, and I'm still, you know, esteemed at some of the things he did.
After the concerto, Deep Purple went on to have a hit single with Black Knight. It was created one evening in a recording studio when Ritchie started playing around on the guitar.
When he started playing, do 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 do, hey, but we were drunk, you know. That's all right. Let's do that. He said, "No, we can't do that. That's Ricky Nelson's Summertime." I was playing. Oh fuck! I never heard it. Let's do it. Where should we go from here? Let's do, let's go to the A, okay. Stop, and back to the riff again, okay. What are we going to write about? I don't know. He said, what about that old Arthur Alexander number we used to do in episode 6 called Black Knight? It's a blues soul record, I can't remember now. Yeah, we'll steal that title, okay, Black Knight. So what are we going to write about? I don't know, Black Knight. Don't feel too bright. Yeah, that'll do.
Black night is not bright. I don't feel so bright. I don't care to sit tight. Maybe if I on the way down the line that I'm free to be me. Black night is a long way from home.
In those early days of Deep Purple, there was a definite sense that as a band, we played our instruments to the utmost. That we weren't really doing it until we were hammering the hell out of them. Hitting the strings as hard as you could, bending those VU meters over.
Ow! She's too much. She's never gonna leave my side. I need her. I want her. All right. Ow, 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 ow. I'm a rolling stone, baby.
The band embarked on a period of frantic touring and recording, a period which saw them at their height both commercially and artistically. But relationships were beginning to fray. The main antagonists were guitarist Ritchie Blackmore and singer Ian Gillan.
The last year of the band's life before 73, I don't think Ritchie or Ian Gillan spoke one word to each other.
I mean, I didn't particularly plan on having fights with him or anything like that. But, you know, I couldn't tolerate it. Couldn't allow this to happen.
They became two poles, because the more one would do it, the more the other would do it. And the more one got away with it, the more the other one was determined he was going to get away with it.
If you feel bad, oh Lord, I bet you have.
Things came to a head when Ian Gillan wrote his resignation letter while on tour.
I've never really understood what actually pushed him to sit down and write that letter.
To walk out of a band at that peak would seem stupid, but I couldn't find any other way to do it. I couldn't talk to anyone. No one would listen. No one would say, shut up.
It was the biggest shame in rock and roll, ever. God knows what we would have been, you know, over the next 3 or 4 years. We were writing so well.
I must have been pretty impossible for no one to come up and actually put an arm around me and say, you know, I'm sure we can work this out.
I was the youngest guy in the band, you know, and I just wanted to keep on playing. I didn't care about anything. I didn't care about how the other guys felt. I didn't care about how much money we were earning, when the tour started, when it finished. Okay, you're in America tomorrow. Okay, I'll be there. I had no concept of anything other than just going out and enjoying myself.
Ian Gillan was determined to leave, but his departure led to more upsets than just the loss of a lead singer.
Richie came to me and said, well, you know, like, if Ian's going, we might as well get rid of Rog. What? You know, well, why don't we look, we're going to go for a new singer, one who sings more bluesy. Aren't we? And I said, whatever. You know, I mean, why don't we get a bass player who sings too? Then we can have harmonies.
Again, I think that was more of a Ritchie decision, that.